So at a very young age, you hit the jackpot.
Yeah, and I worked with Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, Steve Chen. I had made some money. I went out and bought a fancy car, but behind the scenes, I was living this double life.
You ran into a life coach.
Yeah, and then my homework assignment was, I want you to go home. I want you to write down all of your secrets.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Taipei Tonight Show. I am your host, Dennis Nieh. I want to give a special thanks to all the viewers out there. Your support means so much to us. Any comment, a thumbs up, a big thanks from me and the team. Now, today we have a very special guest coming your way. He was part of the PayPal Mafia in his early 20s, back in the 2000s. He made it huge in Silicon Valley in the tech industry already. But at a very early age, hitting that success and a part of his growing up brought some dark secrets, or the darker side of him, out. But over the years, he's able to overcome it, and he's willing to share some of the wisdom that he has accumulated over the years. We're very, very lucky to have him with us here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of Silicon Valley Porn Star, Mr. Jason Portnoy. This is great. Thank you for making the time to come here and talk to us.
Thank for having me.
Yeah, I was
to be here.
Super excited when they told me I'm going to interview the Silicon Valley porn star.
Okay.
Until I realized, oh, wait a minute, no. The author of this amazing book.
Thank you.
But jokes aside, first of all, I wanted to let you know it's really amazing.
Okay.
I really enjoy the read.
Thank you.
And it's quite brave for you to come out and share this journey.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is the first time you're in Taiwan.
Yes.
And to our audience,
Yes.
you have an amazing background or career already. Can you give us a little bit of background?
Let's see. I grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey in the USA, and had, I think, a pretty normal childhood. I thought it was a pretty normal childhood. Went off to college and then went to Silicon Valley. I got there in late 1999, just in time for kind of the first dot-com boom, and got swept up in the whole Silicon Valley thing.
Yeah. You were really young at that time, right? You were in your 20s?
I got there late 99, and a lot of my friends, I was in graduate school, and a lot of my friends had some job experience, work experience. And so I decided to get a job, a part-time job. And I got a job at this company in early 2000 called Confinity. And they had a product called PayPal that was a way to beam money to people on a Palm Pilot.
Yes.
That's how it started. And after I was there for a few months, the company was growing very quickly and like crazy. And so then I dropped out of my graduate school program to go work there full time. It was like stepping onto a rocket ship.
Wow.
And changed my life. Yeah.
Right.
And I worked with some really amazing creators who've become legendary. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, Steve Chen,
someone that's been on the show as well.
Okay, that's great. We had a really good time there, yeah.
Well, but back in those days, you're in your 20s, and then PayPal gets listed, IPO.
Yes.
We're talking about a lot of money.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, more money than I thought I'd make in my 20s.
Yeah.
You know, there was people making a lot more than me.
I hear that there was a big celebration. What was that like?
Oh yeah, I mean, the IPO day, I mean, we had been working so hard for so long, and it was hard to go public. The regulators tried to block it because they didn't know how to regulate the company.
Yeah.
Is it a bank? Is it a money transfer service? Competitors were trying to take us out all the time.
All kinds of
and
stuff
so there
going
was all this stress. And so that, I'll never forget that IPO party. It was at the office and in the parking lot. We were celebrating. It was such a huge relief. Someone had set up 10 chess boards because Peter Thiel is a chess master. I might get that wrong. He's a very good chess player.
Really?
Very highly ranked.
Uh-huh.
And so they set up 10 chess boards and he played 10 people at the same time. And
Wow.
actually, very famously, this one guy, David Sachs, won his game against
He won
Peter,
his game.
which was kind of a big deal, and that was maybe the most memorable moment of the party because Peter didn't lose very often.
Wow.
So there's an interesting thing about the group too. There was so much stress and pressure, right? We had come out of the dark of the dot-com boom and then succeeded in this thing, and it really felt like almost like brothers and sisters. We had just been through so much together, and I think it's one of the reasons why that group still to this day is really pretty tight-knit. Like we had a PayPal reunion party 2 years ago at Peter's house in Los Angeles, and it was amazing to see everyone, and there was just so much love and appreciation and catching up, and a lot of people continued to do business together, you know, sometimes publicly, but sometimes behind the scenes. It's been really, I feel so lucky to have been part of that group, and it will define me maybe my whole life. I mean, I meet people and they're excited about the fact that I worked at PayPal, and sometimes I think that was so long ago, you know, but it's a very special thing.
So at a very young age, you hit the jackpot.
Yeah.
But the definition of success at that time, was this what you were chasing?
Well, absolutely, and I thought I was doing everything right. And certainly on the outside and on the surface, it looked like things were really moving in the right direction. I had made some money. I went out and bought a fancy car. And I just—
The fancy car.
The fancy car.
Yeah.
Tom Selleck. The Magnum PI, red Ferrari. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, I thought this is what you do. This is what, you know, maybe whether it was television, movies, media, as a youth, I thought this is what it meant to be a successful man, was to go out, make money, have a great car, maybe there's women involved, and like this was to me the mark of being a successful young man.
Yeah, well, but this book, let's go into that a little bit now that we have some context. At some point, you realized it was becoming a problem.
Yeah, so I have this amazing experience in PayPal, but it didn't end there. So after PayPal, several of us went to help Peter Thiel start his hedge fund, and we grew that. And then I left there and I became the first chief financial officer at a company called Palantir Technologies that then went on to be quite a successful company. I invested in Palantir early on before I even worked there. And so the successes just kept, you know, stacking up, but I'm somehow still not happy, maybe on the inside. And, you know, for me, it starts with pornography in my late 20s. Then it starts to escalate into hookups on Craigslist, which, you know, you may have known Craigslist in the Bay Area. It was a place where everyone found apartments.
Yes. So actually you were looking for an apartment.
Yeah, that's right. That's how it started.
Instead you found some temporary roommates.
Something like that. Yeah, you could say that.
Literally for a young guy at that age, that was a dream.
A little bit, but I had a steady girlfriend.
Okay.
And then I got engaged, and then I got married, and I was still doing these things in the background. So I was living kind of a double life. And this is where things start to, you know, really take a darker turn in my story. And on the outside, it looks like this very successful story. It's got the titles, the car, the money, now the wife, a daughter is on the way, you know, all of these things on the outside. But behind the scenes, I was living this double life. And after several years of that, that's when things really started to unravel. And I started to feel like, hey, I need to stop doing this, but I can't seem to stop. And I'm not exactly sure why. And then several years after that, I finally get to a point where I get caught. And I am forced to admit that I have and confront this thing and admit that I have a problem, and I can't stop.
Wow. In your book, you mentioned that you ran into a life coach.
Yeah, that's right.
Melissa.
Yes. I call her a life coach in the book because I feel like really she was a spiritual guide. I call her a life coach because spiritual guide, I worry, you know, we'll lose people or people are not sure what that means. Although a lot of people aren't sure what life coach means. But basically it was someone to hold me accountable and kind of call me out and but also to kind of love me in a very non-judgmental way and say, hey, you're doing these things. They're not serving you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to shame you. I'm going to help you figure out why you're doing this. Why are you doing this? Why are you creating this in your life? And once we can figure that out, we can figure out how to create a new life.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective, it is life coaching.
Because accountability is the key word.
Yeah.
That you in the book, and I feel like this is a very common problem with all people. Are we fooling ourselves, or are we trying to paint ourselves as the victims to start off?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So my first conversation with her, and I've met people who have coaches or therapists or mentors that they haven't actually told the full truth to.
Yeah.
And so that was my situation too. It took me years before I finally told her the entire truth, so she knew what we were working with. And I think she always knew there was something going on that I wasn't sharing, but yeah, in the very first session, I kind of went in there painting myself as a victim, and because my relationship with my wife was unraveling, and I thought it was my wife's fault, and I was painting myself as a victim, and she wasn't giving me any sympathy. And I was thinking, what's going on here? Like everyone else I told this story to gave me a lot of sympathy.
Did that throw you off?
It totally threw me off, yeah. And then she was like, yeah, it feels like you've got this victim thing going on. I was like, yeah, I am a victim.
Oh, so she called you out on it.
Yeah, she said, no, you're not a victim. You've created this for yourself, and I'll help you figure out why. And then my homework assignment was, I want you to go home, and before we talk next week, I want you to write down all of your secrets. And I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, how does she know I have secrets? Like, she saw it all immediately. Now, she is gifted and a rare breed. I wish everyone in the world could speak with her. Obviously, that's not possible, but yeah, she saw it all right there, I think, or she knew. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Particular case, we're talking about sex, we're talking about porn.
Yeah.
It is more common now than it has ever been.
I know. It's so accessible.
Yeah, right?
It's so accessible. And especially after everything I went to, I know that there's people out there that watch porn. I never want them to feel ashamed. I never want them to feel judged. If you're addicted to alcohol, drugs, gambling, work, television, working out, whatever it is, if you have those feelings of guilt, shame, embarrassment, that's what drives you into your addictive pattern. And so you have to have compassion for yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to be kind to yourself and say, hey,
and start accepting
and say, hey, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a deeper reason here. Maybe there's something I need to heal. Maybe there's a wound here and some pain that I'm trying to avoid by doing this.
Yeah, but this is so hard.
It is awkward to talk about, but what I have found is ever since I wrote the book, published the book, now I talk about it a lot. It's very liberating. And it's amazing when I sit down and I talk to someone and I share something about the story, then they start sharing with me all kinds of things that they're typically embarrassed to share with anyone.
So, I mean, is this fair enough to say the old saying that truth will set you free?
100%. It's both the idea that shining, the best sunlight is the best disinfectant. So shining the light on this dark side of yourself is the first way to start healing. And then, telling the truth will set you free. And so I have coached men, couples on like, hey, if there's been some infidelity, if there's something that's happened, like consider either just with each other or with the help of a third party, getting that out in the open. Because it's probably pointing to something deeper that if you resolve can bring your relationship to a whole new level of closeness.
But now, at this point, all that you have experienced, the growth and the pain, obviously, things with you and Amory.
Yes, my wife.
Yeah, your wife.
Same woman, by the way. We're girlfriend, engaged, married, daughter, now a son. We're still together. We joke we're on marriage 3.0. Maybe it's because we're from Silicon Valley, so talk about it.
I've been married for over 20 years, and every couple will probably have their challenges and whatnot.
That's right.
For you guys now, looking back,
Yeah.
What has it done for you guys, or how do you guys view it?
Well, I mean, it's such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
It almost probably maybe sounds funny, but it's been such a gift because it forced us to look inside. You know, I had to look inside myself and say, what is going on? What is driving me to do these things? And I had to heal that. But she also had to look inside and say, why was I attracted to that sort of man?
Yeah.
Or why was I attracted to that sort of relationship?
Right.
What was I getting out of being in that sort of relationship?
Yeah.
And that opened the door to
The other side of the
the
equation.
entire other side of the equation, and an entire growth journey for her.
Right. Amazing journey, but then now you have kids.
Yeah.
You've been able to confront this process
addiction thing,
with yourself,
Yeah.
with your wife,
Yeah.
and then now with the readers out there.
Yeah.
Are you going to confront this with your children? at
So
some
my
point?
daughter actually recently read the book.
How old is
she's
she?
14.
She's
She'll
14.
be 15 very soon. She read it a few months ago. She was very impressed. She was very proud. And she said it really helped her appreciate me and her mother,
Oh, wow.
you know, on a much deeper level. And it was really touching when she told me that she had read the book, because she had it for a long time and she hadn't read it. I think she was a little nervous. You know, with my son, it's a whole different thing. So on the surface, it's this money, cars, women, Silicon Valley, you know, kind of glitzy, exciting story. And then the guy goes into the dark and climbs out of it. But there's a different version of the story, which is a boy who has some trauma, whose emotional development stalls out at some point in his childhood, and he grows up. He looks like a man on the outside, but he's really still a boy on the inside. And he bumps up against the limitations of that boy consciousness in the world, and realizes he needs to grow up. He needs to become a mature adult man. How do you do that? Where do you look in society today for role models to be a mature adult man? So I wasn't really thinking along these lines until my son arrived in 2016. In 2018, 2019, I'm parenting him the way my stepfather parented me. A lot of fear, anger, wasn't working for him or me. And I realized I need to change. This is not the kind of man I want to be. I need to be a more mature adult man. And so then it launched me on this whole journey of exploring mature masculinity and things of that nature. Maybe that's a next book.
Yeah. How would you recommend, or how do you see, you know, humanity moving forward? You know, from this point, every household had their problems.
Yeah.
Every relationship has their problems, but they probably all came from something.
Yes, I know. Well, and a lot of the stuff is handed down, right? You have some kind of family, some kind of trauma, and then that person transfers that trauma to their child in some way, and then it gets passed down and passed down and passed down, and it's nobody's fault. What I learned was that I had to stop looking to the outside world to feel safe, secure, validated, loved, etc. I had to give all of those things to myself.
And for the young people out there, or for your kids, you know, or for other parents, what would your words be to them?
Well, I mean, this is one of the things I'm very focused on right now, is this idea that culturally we've lost track of a lot of the processes and rituals and rites of passage that we used to go through to help children mature into adolescence, to help adolescents mature into adulthood, and adults to mature into elderhood. I feel like we've lost some of that. We've lost some of the maybe respect for the unique gifts that people at each stage of that life cycle bring. I think for mostly parents, I'm focused on, because raising children is such a huge responsibility, but like, your responsibility is to help this human transition from childhood to adolescence, and from adolescence to adulthood. And that means you yourself have to be a mature adult that has transitioned out of adolescence into adulthood. And you know, our society and culture doesn't really want us to transition out of adolescence sometimes, because when you're in adolescence, you want to buy lots of things, you want that validation.
Yep.
And so I think it's trying to take a step back and slow down a little bit and focus on like, what is my responsibility as a parent and as an adult in society, you know? And I believe it's to be in service to the younger generations and to help them along their way and to mentor them and to parent them and to take it all very seriously.
I really like the message that you're sending out there, that to love yourself.
Yeah.
But you know, I feel like sometimes this term is used in different ways in our society now.
Yeah.
To love yourself doesn't mean to be selfish.
Correct.
Is to to really treat yourself. I've said this to my kids before. You know, can you treat yourself like you're the one person that you love the most in this world? How would you treat that person? Can you treat yourself like that?
Well, and I think to your point, it doesn't mean being selfish. It's actually, it turns out if you love yourself and if you are content and if you don't need anything, and if you don't have, that means that you don't have an agenda on everyone that you're meeting because you don't need anything from them. And if you can meet someone and be with them in a way where you have no agenda because you're content, then you can really be in service to them.
Yeah.
Then you can really love them.
Wow.
And be with them in a way that's non-judgmental, etc., because you don't need anything from them. So you're just there to give. And imagine if we all walked around and we were all so content and secure in who we were that we were just there to be in service to each other. I feel like that'd be an amazing world.
Yes.
I mean, it sounds crazy maybe, but I don't think it's impossible.
No, well, that's the crazy thing is, you know, what's right sounds crazy, right? Silicon Valley porn star, you know, the porn star part, he wasn't a porn star.
I was never a porn star.
He was never a porn star, right? It's a part of the journey where everyone has different sides to them.
That's right.
And this is part of your journey where you realize, wow, maybe the flashy kind of sex-driven porn star side of you was taken over. So you kind of gave yourself that nickname.
Well, actually, it's my life coach who gave me that nickname. When I first started disclosing that I had some issue, the first thing I said was, you know, I look at porn more than I would like, and I'd like to figure out how to stop that. And then she, you know, kind of laughed. I was so embarrassed to share it. And she was like, porn, you know? And she made light of it, and that actually helped me share more. And then in subsequent sessions, she would say, so how's Porn Star doing this week? And so you kind of nicknamed that part of me, Porn Star, which helped us talk about it.
Okay. It's amazing. If we can all just be honest with ourselves, we do have different sides. But who are we letting to take charge?
That's right.
And what are we letting to drive where we're headed?
That's right.
Is such an important, such a conscientious, really important decision for us to make. Thank you for shedding light. Thank you for being extremely brave and honest in bringing this book to everybody out there. Just don't think you're going to be reading a porn story.
That's right. There's nothing pornographic in the story.
It's an amazing book. I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And your first time in Taiwan.
Absolutely,
right? As a new guest of Taiwan, this is how we roll, right? We love our food and we like to take care of our guests.
I'm going to gain 10 pounds in 5 days.
Yes, you are. Yes.
My daughter.
So we got you the best boba in town.
Amazing.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for coming on our show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next week. We're gonna eat now.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's chow in.